Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Good afternoon. At this time, guys. You want me to start it? Oh, we'll start it afternoon. At this time, we will call the Animal Advisory Board to order. And we will begin with item number 2, public comment. And we have one registered speaker today. So citizens who desire to address the board will be called up at this time. And if you could say your name and address before you begin speaking. So our first speaker registered is Lisa Tynan. Tynan, yeah. Okay. Is there a specific place? You can go up at the podium. Go. The timing. Holding. There we go. Is somebody timing?
And how long do I have?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, I'll talk fast. My name is Lisa Tynan. My address is 2814. I'm here on behalf of Houston Pet Set, and we wanted to speak with y'all about animal welfare, euthanasia policies, and public safety. I personally, and I know I can speak for my organization, we feel very strongly that municipal shelters serve primarily as a public safety organization, and that should be at the forefront of any decisions being with regard to the disposition of animals. The number one question I would always ask somebody if they are considering whether an animal is safe is, would you want that animal to live next door to you? Would you be willing to have your children playing out in your yard, knowing that that animal lived next door and could potentially come in contact with you? I should also inform you all that I am an animal behaviorist. I have my master's degree in animal behavior, and I've been in animal welfare for 14 years now. So we all know I love animals, but I also do believe that not all animals are safe. And that should be the driving factor for all operations within a municipal. The other thing to keep in mind is that animals do not think the same way that humans do. We love, as pet owners, I have 5 pets myself. We love to anthropomorphize. We love to assume that the way that we feel is the same way that they feel, and the way that we think is the same way that they. But our understanding of animal behavior is that they don't think about their futures in the same way we do. They're not dreading what could happen if they don't behave. And they aren't sitting in their kennel wondering, am I next for the euthanasia? They don't know it. That's not their life. What they do know is if they're confined in a kennel for 1, 2, sometimes 3 years with no family, with no regular walks, with no control over their environment, they are suffering, and they are suffering because of us. And if we work in animal welfare and we care about animals, that should weigh heavy on our hearts. Not that we are potentially euthanizing them, but that we are causing them suffering deliberately. So I think if we are thinking about euthanasia policy from a humane perspective, we also have to weigh that option. Are we the reason that this animal is forced to live a life confined? And is that life where they are confined, they don't experience love or care, they're mentally suffering, is that truly kinder than a humane euthanasia that they don't understand or anticipate or have to worry about? All they know is someone is holding them, loving them, talking to them, and then they go to sleep. So I do ask that you consider your citizens, your neighbors, your family, your friends when you're contemplating the outcome of an animal, remind yourself, would I feel safe with this animal living next door to me? Would I feel safe with my children playing outside with this animal in my neighborhood? Thank you all for your time.
Any other walk-ins? Okay, then at this time, we will move on to item number 3. Consideration of and action on the minutes from our March 22nd meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the March 22nd, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, then we will move on to item 4, which is our workshop and review and discussion of the new animal shelter facility. And I have Dawn staff, but I see Dawn is not here. All right, so.
All right, so since neither Dawn nor Rob were able to be here today, so I will give the update on where we're at on the new animal shelter. So you all, we talked about I don't know why that says November. Anyway, we combined a lot of the slides from several PowerPoints. So anyway, the retreat was in April. Basically, what we reviewed with the city council is, where we're at, like, how did we get where we are today? We reviewed with them the studies that were done in, back in 2017 timeframe, how we got to the $9 million figure, and also what came out of the recent update with Animal Arts and PGAL. And back in, okay, let me backtrack here. So, oops, the hole in the floor. Yeah, one of those things. You okay, Marion?
I'm sorry.
No.
To your right.
Yeah, it would be safer.
Sorry, I just wanted attention. I wasn't getting it.
All right, so coming in before the spring retreat, the last time the city council talked about the shelter was in November of 2023. At that time, their direction was to build a shelter with the $9 million that we had previously allocated from the 2019 GO bonds. That shelter was sized at 17,208 gross square feet, and it would have housed 132 cats and 70 dogs. About 13,400 square feet indoor, 3,800 outdoors. The funding was made up of 6.6 million from the GO bond that was approved by voters. 2.4 million was to be fundraised. And some of the items that were kind of included in that 2.4 million for the fundraising was a multi-purpose room, a sally port, a larger medical treatment space, canopies, staff locker rooms, and FF&E. And those were ones that the board at that time said, we're not willing to give those up. We'll fund those through fundraising. If I'm stating anything incorrectly, please let me know. But based on going back and researching our history as a group, that's what we came up with. So in January, we brought in PJL and Animal Arts, and we had them verify the programming for the building. And we also had them update the construction estimates to $2024. So what has changed is obviously inflation, construction cost has gone up dramatically, around 40% cost increase just due to inflation. Also, the animal housing standards have increased, about 15 square feet per dog. On average is the increase just in the size standards for keeping, and housing dogs. And that was adopted in 2022. So because of that, the facility has increased in size, based on the increased square footage, and also our programming needs. Some of the items that were previously, kind of maybe a want, they really are needs. And so what came out of that is, we're recommending a shelter that would house 80 dogs and 122 cats. It comes out to about 23,600 square feet indoor and 2,600 outdoor canopied space for gross square footage of 26,241. We have a site in mind that is for a ground up build. And the council has asked us, and the cost of this design shelter is $20,400,000. So it is a significant increase over the $9 million that we were looking at before. So we have 6.6 million in the GO bond funding. So that leaves us at about 13.76 million, not including the fundraising portion. So if you back the fundraising portion out, you're down to about 11.4 million that we would need in additional funds to get to the 20.4 million. And so this is pre-value engineering. This is just based on our discussions with Animal Arts and what we feel is needed. So after discussion with council, the direction was from city council that we want to build what is needed. We don't want to undersize our facility. One of the options was build with the money that we have, and basically it gives us what we have now. It doesn't give us any bigger of a facility. So the direction that council consensus was for us to move forward, plan on building what we need. We're still going to fundraise the 2.4 million. We're previously committed to that. The good news is the fundraising is not going to be required to be in our hand up front. So we will be able to move forward with the project and still continue fundraising while we're under construction. So I think that will help with our fundraising efforts. We'll be able to say, here's the design, here's what it's going to look like, and we'll have some of that work underway while we're able to raise those funds. We've also been given a charge to find ways to reduce the funding that is needed. If we can value engineer, I don't know that we're going to be able to reduce the budget a ton, but we're going to look at different types of construction, the materials, and also square footage and programming, and say, is that something we really need to have right now? Or is that something that we could, maybe phase in later? We've also been given direction to evaluate existing commercial spaces in the city with the vacant buildings that we have. So we have engaged PGAL in another contract to look at 3 existing either commercial or municipal sites to see if any of those are feasible and what the cost would be associated with that. So that's where we're at right now. Are there any questions on the new shelter?
Is ease of public access one?
Absolutely.
At other.
Yes. We'll be looking at, ease of access. Is it centrally located? What's the proximity to residential? We might disturbing residents. That was actually one of the issues with one of the park sites that we looked at. We looked at 6 sites, I think. Our preferred site was very centrally located, away from residential, easy access off of US 90A. So, that is definitely I think the cost of retrofitting an existing building is probably gonna be a little more given the drainage that we have to have in building. Different requirements that we have to have, so we'll see what comes out of it. But we're gonna research that some more.
Does that mean we're moving away from next to the police department?
Right now, that is not our preferred site. The preferred location from the initial round was at Imperial Park. But however, we have not had conversations with the softball league yet, so we haven't really like put that out there. But that is staff and the consultants preferred site.
Does this mean we would have to go through another bond before we could get started on this?
Yes, so we will be putting this on the ballot in November. We're working on a GO bond package currently, and we'll be having a workshop at the end of May with city council, talking through options. But council was on board with as funding as much of the shelter as we could in the available package. And so we'll an update to them. I think it's May. No, 28, sorry. I'm checking my dates. I know 21st is a regular meeting, so I have item on there. So yeah, May 28th, we'll be doing a workshop on that.
Jennifer, do we have any rough idea if we were to reutilize an existing commercial space about the cost to basically restore it to where it could be served as some? Did they give you a rough idea?
That's what we're looking at now.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
don't
that's what
have
this
any
contract with
possible
PGA
numbers or anything.
Not yet.
Okay.
No, we've just started that process.
What size are you looking at on commercial sites?
I think it would be a comparable size, so it's gonna end up
About
being
20,000,
the
23,000.
26,000
26,000.
indoor and outdoor, yeah. And I don't know if retrofitting an existing building, the footprint may end up being a little larger just due to like how we have to fit in there. So, but we'll get that report back from PGAL.
Are we to a point where we are now ready and have permission to put together a fundraising package with a dollar value and materials that we can hand out?
Yes.
Great.
We are good on I think we're solid on the 2.4 million fundraising goal. And we can start with that direction, and we just need to figure out where it's gonna go. And then we can start the design process. We have design funding now from the original 6.6 million that's already in the budget. So as soon as we identify like where the location, we can start that design.
Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about why the police department site is off the table as the preferred site? I mean, that's just prime usability and.
It is a prime site, and that's one of the things that we're looking at, but the adjacency to the police department. There are some other needs that we're balancing, which would be public safety related and the need to relocate fire administration out of the City Hall Annex. There's been a recommendation for that building. That building is having issues. The existing police department building is having issues. And so we're looking at the 9 acres next to the police department kind of as a public safety campus. And the shelter may not fit in there anymore. But the site that we've identified at Imperial Park is wonderful. It has, it's actually a wooded area right now. There's nothing there. And it's got nice trails, a lot of space to walk dogs, and very visible right off of 90A.
Question about the fundraising. We started with the 2.4 million. We know we need more money now. Why are we limiting? I mean, is there an option to raise more? I mean, when I think about, I know we got a sizable donation from an individual. So are we also going after companies, and can't we obviously aim higher than 2.4 million?
Absolutely, we could raise more, and we would use that to, I think, enhance the shelter even further. But the direction from city council was for the original budget, the target's still the 2.4 million. So I think anything we would raise up and above that, we could say enhance, the features of the channel.
I would just like to add that we have an entire, a fundraising plan laid out. We've been having meetings, about grants and other activities, including endowment for some of the additional programs and things. So that's not presentable yet, but in the near future, you will hear more about all those details. And we do have a plan to go out into the community to talk to businesses and those kinds of things as well.
Will we still offer, like we talked about years ago in our meetings, naming rights to the buildings, the rooms,
Yes,
all that?
so the entire shelter, in the past, during those meetings, we went through a ranking system where we identified the areas that somebody would most likely be willing to pay to have naming rights to. And we picked that up and we've gone from there and identified dollar values, potential dollar values. And I think council and staff are working to determine whether they want to use those values. So what should the top dollar value be for naming a building after somebody? There's some ordinance requirements that are a little different than what we need them to be for this project. So there's some discussion going on in the background about that as well. But as all of those things are coordinated and decided upon, then we will be ready, because we've already laid out all those areas that we've talked about in the past with a dollar value. We have dollar values for putting names on walls and bricks and all kinds of things. So I think you'll be happy with the kind of comprehensiveness of the things that we've looked at. But we're just waiting for a final value really before we go forward with those, presenting
And
those.
I think coming out of the retreat, the 2.4 million is a good target. What we need to figure out is, what is our costs and, what can we get out of the bond? Because that's right now, one of the other unknowns is how much are we going to get allocated out of the bond packages? So there's still a couple things floating around, but Barbara has been working with Kimberly. Like she said, behind the scenes, Kimberly couldn't be here today, but I understand they just had a meeting with our grants officer and grants analyst who is very good at grant writing. Other questions? Right, thank you.
Okay, then we will move on to review of and discussion on the animal shelter and community engagement portion by Cindy King and Jillian.
Right, so I'm gonna cover operations, some staffing updates, training updates, medical 311 call data, some population reports, ordinance updates, monthly statistics, microchipping update, but I'm also going to cover some process updates as we go through this. So we have updated our hours as of April 8th. We are open Monday through Saturday. One of our staff, Ashley, who is our admin supervisor, made the suggestion that even though our reception is off on Monday, that she'd be able to step in and cover the front desk. So we were able to open up on Mondays with Ashley covering the front desk as far as that goes. So we are open 6 days a week. Our Saturday hours didn't change. Have added that extra day of the week, and it's a busy day. Update on our staffing levels. We do have all of our kennel techs positions actually have been filled. One part-timer moved to full-time to replace Geneva, so Kayla Jones was moved part-time to full-time. So all of our full-time positions are full, and all of our part-timers are scheduled to start on Monday. So we completely full on that. We do have a job posting for a vet tech. Ashley Landon has resigned. She's gone back to private practice, and we're going to feel a big hole there, but moving forward with recruiting for that position. Part-time vet position has been posted for recruitment. We haven't had any response on that at this time. And as y'all are well aware, I think Jillian has started back with us on April 1st. So that position has been. So our staff has continued training. We did a rabies awareness training that all staff attended on April 5th. This is also going to be training that's pushed out to volunteers, just so they have an idea of what goes on and why things happen like they do. We had 3 take the ACO training class through Texas Department of State Health Services. So we're doing some cross training. Josh is an animal control officer, so he took that class, and but the other 2 that took it were Ashley, our an admin supervisor, and also Paige. So we're going to have multiple people that understand rules and regulations within the state and ordinances and things like that. So it just gives us a more breadth of what we can do and what we know. Jennifer and I attended Texas Unites for Animal Conference in Austin this year. It was a really, really good conference that we brought back. We're already working on some changes of things that we learned in that. The behavior management certification course that most of the supervisors took earlier this year, we actually have additional staff taking that. It will start on May 20th. All of our animal control officers will be taking it. The vet tech, Laco, will be taking it. Others will be taking it too. Yeah, Jennifer's going to be taking it. So we'll have even more staff with formal behavior management training. We have 3 of our, so Mike Dravis, our field supervisor, and our animal control officer 2, animal service officer 2, will be taking tactical canine behavior, bite stick, pepper spray, and chemical capture training course. What it's designed for is essentially letting them be more safe. And before we add anything that they had wanted into the system, we want them to have the training. So this will help develop protocols and safety measures for them as they are out trying to capture animals. So for our heartworm treatment dogs, we have had 65 total since we started, when Dr. Bender was with us last year, that we test in, or that we treat in-house. Once dogs test positive, they're treated 30 days on antibiotics, and then they will get 2 injections administered by a veterinarian. That's the only person that can do it. They have to be 24 hours apart. So now we contract with a vet, and she comes in once a month, 2 days in a row. 6 months after those 2-day injections, they are tested again to find out if they are still, or if they are negative. We have tested 24 of the 65, which have tested negative on follow-up. So all that have tested on follow-up have been negative. We have 4 dogs that are currently in that 30-day treatment process. We have had 2 that have had adverse reactions. Last year, Gypsy had some adverse reactions. She had some paralysis, a lot of rear end paralysis. She didn't come back 100%, but she came back enough. She got adopted out. Unfortunately, this last month, we did have a dog that had a reaction. She was in a potential adopter's home. She had been given the injections. I can't remember how many days. It was just a few days after she had gone out. And she had a reaction that night in their home. They took her to the vet. She spent 2 days in an emergency vet clinic before she was humanely euthanized. But she completely crashed. So we have had 2 adverse reactions, but we've continued treatment on a lot of dogs and had a lot of positive reaction from a lot of dogs. And again, just heat maps, our call volume continues to trend up every month for our ACOs, the bite scratches, calls, the cruelty and welfare checks, dead animal on the road, feral cats, stray dogs, our track requests, the trapped animals, any violations that they have to respond to, and wildlife calls that they have to respond to. Just looking back at this, we had 160 in September and October, and it's gradually creeped up. And this last March and April, we're up to 238. So they just continue to get busier and busier and busier. And then this is just our heat map for the strays that have been found over the past 2 months, which is staying consistent as far as numbers. The numbers aren't really going up. There were 114 in the 2 months before, so 116 calls within this group. And as we see, the areas of calls they're pretty much maintaining at the same locations. So on our shelter population, we have great news is that we do have dogs moving through. We have had adoptions going on. On the flip side, kitten seasons come in like a hurricane. That's the 4 here. We had over 100 new intakes from March and April, 83 of those in April alone of kittens. This week, we had 15 intakes within a 4-hour period on Monday. We did do 16 transfers to rescue groups between March and April 24th. At that point, they also told us they were saturated and weren't able to take the neonates and young kittens. Fortunately, Best Friends had a few open up and they were able to take 7 of our kittens yesterday. But we are busting at the seams with kittens. We have no more bottle baby fosters available. And with that being said, the other thing is finding bottle babies and pulling them out of where a mother had them is not in their best interest. It's in their best interest to leave them with mom. And that's what we're having to tell people, that just picking up and bringing them in is not in the best interest. And just because you're not seeing mom doesn't mean mom's not around. If mom's feral, mom's not going to come around when you're there. So it's not a popular thought for people wanting to bring the babies in, but that's going to be their best chance because we have no fosters. Updating on our ordinance, after we met on March 22nd, over when we met in the chamber, the recommendation was moved forward to City Council. And on April 16th, they unanimously approved the first reading. And then we had the second reading on consent agenda on May 7th, which was approved. So the ordinance has been approved and will move forward. So what next on that? The big thing is going to be our community cat caretakers providing a letter of intent to let us know where their colonies are that they're going to be taken care of. And once we get those letters and we approve them, we will give a release form, and it also will have the instructions on what processes they need to do to trap and get the animals spayed and neutered before they put them back. I believe y'all have already gotten our best.
Before you go on, how are we getting the word out to these caretakers that
We'll be pushing out social media. It just passed Tuesday, so we'll be getting social media and we'll get the word out. It'll be on our website, things like that. The other thing is we have to start, and we can't start the whole city once. We have to do small pockets. We don't have a huge capacity to do it right now. So we're gonna start off with, and we've talked with some people that have interest, so those will be the ones we get going first. The other thing is if you look at the heat map, those are the areas we kind of want to focus on. So you have our best friends, March and April reports that are also posted online. Our microchip program is doing amazing. It stays very busy with microchip appointments. Especially after we do a social media push on, just as a reminder that we're doing this. That's when it's like within 24 hours of a social media announcement going out that we do free microchipping, with no restrictions, we end up with lots of calls. So these are the numbers, and it's just, you know, like I said, it's just, the program's going very well, so. As our dog numbers have come down, we are updating the process for intake. We have talked with other shelters in the area, and we are looking at doing an appointment style intake process when we have the capacity. Flow charts are how, and I know you can't read it, it's a work in progress right now. But the flow charts are essentially, if you're a resident, this is the process. If you're not a resident, this is the process. And we'll take in life-threatening injuries, whether resident or not, because it's a life threat to that animal. And transporting it somewhere else is not going to make a difference. So, so anyway, we are working on processes for that. As long as we have capacity for the cats, it won't be any different than it is right now. Like I said, other than right now, we have no neonate capacity.
Cindy, I don't think that was in our original, what was emailed to us. Can someone email this to us or the final presentation?
Oh, it's in PowerPoint. It's just, this is in the PowerPoint. It is.
Okay.
Well, it's like this, you can't read it. It's kind of faded, but it's because it's a work in progress.
Okay.
But we'd be happy to share the intake process once we get them finalized with y'all.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a work in process, so we're still talking through some points.
If we anticipate closing for dogs again, I'd like to prioritize our taxpayers. I'd like to make sure that we save space for our taxpayers for intake.
We don't take anything other than a Sugar Land resident animal.
Perfect.
That's,
Okay.
the animal has to have been found in Sugar Land by a Sugar Land resident. That's the rule.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's the rule. I want to put a huge shout out to our field supervisor, Mike Dravis, as we are working on this new process. During the supervisor meeting, we started discussing options for intake since we have had multiple concerns with things going on in our lobby. He spent a weekend, and for anybody who's been by, you've seen what this looks like. We are asking people to use the window instead of coming into the lobby. That does several things. One, if they have an animal that they're bringing into the lobby, we check for condition and assess the animal before it comes in and go potentially contaminate with any diseases, to spread diseases. So we don't have them into the shelter until after they've been looked at in a controlled environment. The other thing is if we're doing a sleepover process and they have a dog in the lobby that's going out and somebody comes in, it causes problems. We've had several issues like that. And quite honestly, there's some people who don't like our processes and they haven't wanted to leave. So having them go to the window, they're not entering, they're staying outside, they're getting customer service at the window. And then if need be, they can come in based on what we have going on. It's a great plan, but apparently this morning it didn't work because somebody didn't like the process and sat the kittens on top of the computer of the receptionist and walked off. So it's not a foolproof plan. But and she was advised she will get cited. So anyway, but again, huge shout out to Dravis. He spent the weekend pulling up the grass and rocks and building the fence and just, it looks great. We're gonna get a sign on the fence itself to go from there.
The paw prints were from the bench, and I think the bench fell apart.
Yeah,
That's a point.
the bench broke
Yeah.
and instead of.
And so it was leaning up against the building, and so we were like,
The
let's
legs
use
of
it.
the bench broke, we didn't want to get rid of it, so we utilized it here. And with that, I'm gonna turn this over to.
Hello, most of y'all probably know me. I'm Jillian Henshaw. I am the renewed community partnership and program manager, so I'm back. And happy to be back. All right, so I'm gonna go through a couple of things. I'm a very visual person, so I wanted to share all the photos because my phone is full of them as well as Yenny's, but y'all don't get to see a lot of those pictures. I just want to do, this was a cute little picture. We have a photographer I'll talk about, and she actually ended up adopting one of our kittens that Donna's neighbor had found in an engine. And anyway, it's got kind of wonky eyes. And so she had a dog named Tonka that she already adopted. So Tonka and Wonka now have a live together. And so the Saturday after I came back, so I came back on April Fool's Day, but it wasn't a joke. When I came back, there was a Girl Scout activity. So they were practicing their reading skills. We did some playing with some of the balls. That's Nutter Butter, if you don't recognize him, who's on a sleepover today. And we're hoping for the good news that he'll get adopted Saturday. But they did a fundraiser. They donated some items, so it was really nice. One of the things that came out of this for me is that I really wanted everyone to get on board with starting collars. Cindy recommended the Martingale collar. So for instance, you can see in this picture, if I needed to grab him, I can grab his scruff, but I felt like in certain situations, we definitely need to be able to control animals in the backyard. So you might see that some of the pets now have Martingale collars. I think we're a few shy. We had 20 donated, which I'll talk about in a few slides. But we're going to work on adding that to our Amazon wish list as well. So that way dogs can have collars on at all time and it makes them look more like home dogs. So that's great as well. One of the events actually hosted by our friends here, they used TE Harmon Center when they were doing a lot of different microchip and free vaccine. And so at the TE Harmon Center, that was again that same Saturday, there were over 800 successful appointments. This was free of cost. I know we had some residents definitely there, and it was really busy between the farmers market and softball and everything else. But there were people lined up well before the event started. So that was an awesome event that we were able to host within the community. Cindy and Jennifer participated in the city's reverse vendor expo. During this time, we were specifically trying to target any veterinarians or any clinics that would be interested in partnering with us, and that way we could offer more services. And that was one of the events that the city planned that we just jumped on board with. On the 14th, we joined Fort Bend as well as Rosenberg. Last time we had a bottle baby educational class, we hosted it in the Public Works building. This time we used one of the civic centers in Rosenberg and we all joined forces. You can see some of the cute pictures as people learned how to properly feed bottle babies. And this was for education. This was also to remind people again about they have the best chance staying with mom until they can feed themselves or eat properly without bottles. And so this was education and also trying to recruit more fosters. At this point, we have not gained any new bottle baby fosters from this event or since then. So it's an ongoing effort. A lot of people really don't want to sacrifice every 2 hours of sleep, which I understand. But it takes a special person and it's so the week of the 15th to 19th, this is a big week. It was right as I was jumping in. So we made sure that every day we did a different activity. This was Animal Care and Animal Control Appreciation Week. At a lot of locations or a lot of shelters, this is kind of a combo role. We happen to have separate positions for this. So our kennel tech's at the top, and then, I updated a picture. I'm sorry, it didn't show up in this one. But then our animal control officers as well. So we did lots of different activities to make. We did a school career day with the Recenter. I didn't actually have a photo from that event, so I apologize. We also had Stephen F. Austin. Gomez went to that one. If you haven't heard, he had been our longest resident. He's on a foster to adopt at the moment, waiting until June when the rest of the family joins. Feel secure with them, in which case adopted. So hopefully good news at our next meeting. This is referring to Erica. She came and donated, I want to say about 3 hours of time and a substantial amount of money because normally photographers are not free. This time when she came back, I asked not only for like the professional headshots, but the silly, like personable type. So I picked a couple of my favorite, like a niece, you can tell. Any flattering shot of her if you've seen her in person. Rascal since some of his scars have faded, so he is not quite so bad looking these days. Nutter Butterbean, Silly, and Betty and Kelly. So they got blocked by the video, but I took a picture of Erica trying to get the photos of them. So she spent quite a bit of time trying to really capture their personalities, which I appreciated. Some of these will be used for Chameleon, some of it just for our social media posts, and some of them have since been adopted, which is great. We had another event at Pet Supplies plus Telfair. It was their 1-year anniversary event, so they invited us to go. We stayed there. We did take Chicken and Gomez, who not at the shelter right now. But since then, it was a donation collection and raising awareness for not only the new building, but different activities that we do need support on. It wasn't held as a traditional adoption event. And then 22nd through 26th, I have so many pictures. I just picked the one from the front lobby, but we made a poster. Some of our volunteers are also on the AAV or in this room. Volunteer Appreciation Week is so important to us because we want to keep our volunteers. We want to add new volunteers. We want everyone to feel very important. On that note, that Wednesday, we happen to have Yappy Hour. And one of the big things we try to do, remind people the importance of logging their hours and the benefits they get from that. So we have some different prizes based off the amount of hours that you've donated since this began. One of the changes I'm making for the December event that we'll have is to include fosters. So for instance, if you're a bottle baby person, even if you're taking a dog to work on behavior, we want you to get hours for that because you get invited to these types of activities. So that's something I'm in the process of fixing right now. Some of y'all might recognize some of our people, but to date, this is our largest Yappy Hour, and I had a great time and I thought there was good food, so. On the 27th, that was our last formal adoption event. We had the Houston Pets Live Adoption Palooza. And so during that event, we had 2 adopted. One was a cruelty case, so we don't have her photo on here. And then the other one is one many of you have reported seeing running around. So it's kind of hard to see, but it was a little black dog that was found, I think Oyster Creek or somewhere around there running for a while. So she was adopted, snatched up. And in fact, there were multiple people waiting to get her when she was adopted. So luck would have it, the little dogs go. And then on the 30th, Eeyore, he's our old man. He went to the Ann Sullivan Elementary and you can see he was exhausted afterwards. He got lots of attention. He's also going to be showcased at the adoption event we have this weekend that I'll talk about momentarily. We were invited with KPRC and Best Friends to highlight some of the local pets that were going on, as well as an event coming up. Ours will be June 22nd, and I'll talk about it in a few slides, but it's called Bring Love Home. And it's associated with a grant. There's an adoption event with it, so I'll talk about that. We had Chewy there. Chewy left while we were in this meeting. We got an alert saying he went on a sleepover, so I guess we should have these meetings more often. We did a short Brazos Fit event. If you were with us last year, you might remember that we had a dog get close to heat stroke. So as of April, we really try not to do any adoption events outside just because we have intense heat. So for this one, Miss Donna went with Kayla and raised awareness, talked up everything, definitely had some different activities going on. So if you want to learn more, you can talk to her. I'm trying to get in with Brazos Bend for like October, November when it's cooler. Their spring, they say they're all booked. So we'll see if we can extend any other opportunities. The same day, I had Yenny go to Dash and Splash. They had an adoption event / I think it was like vendor expo. So they had lots of different activities. For this one, they had shaded fan area, and it was Mario and Chewy, both of who were on sleepovers at this moment. And then I think it was 2 days ago, we had Brian White Law Group. He's the one who donated the Martingale collars. He also is picking animals at times to sponsor for adoption events. Mario and Chewy are the newest ones, and the next day they both went on sleepovers, so that's great. So those are the 2 latest ones that he's picked, but these kind of partnerships are really valuable. It's definitely nice for people not to feel pressure to pay adoption fees and that someone's sponsoring them and promoting them on the backside. But even just picking collars or things like that, that may not mean something to a business, make a big impact for us. A couple upcoming events for my cat people. This Saturday, so tomorrow, actually, we have an adoption event at Harley-Davidson. I did explain the heat, and last time we did it was March, and it was brutal. So they're letting us do this inside. So we are planning on taking 9 dogs, including Eeyore. So for this adoption event, it's going to be 11 to 3 if you want to stop by. I know if you're a volunteer, we have a couple of shifts you can sign up for. But this is such an awesome opportunity because it's a very particular type of person who love these big buff dogs or these ones that maybe look a little rough and tough or maybe beat up. They're okay with that. And then you have the giant guys who might be interested in our Chihuahua Rascal. So you kind of have an interesting mix of people. So we have our fingers crossed and we're really hopeful that it will be another successful event. Last year, I believe 6 or 7 of them got adopted, but they also pay for the adoption fees and collect donations. And so they're very helpful and it's just a good event if you have time to stop by. And then kind of wrapping this portion up on 6/22, this is referring to the Best Friends grant we applied for. We do have to have an on-site adoption event. I'm in the works of getting where we will book the entire parking lot in front of us. So instead of having people in the grass, looking to have vendors. I know Harley Davidson's already interested. Activities for kids, very family friendly. We're okay with the heat and the dogs will safely be inside in the AC. So if anyone's interested in meeting them, they can take them into the yards. Same thing with the cats. So it's actually a really nice mix that in the summertime, we haven't really done many adoption events because of the heat. But we're learning if we do them at the shelter, like they're in AC. So it's great for them and not so great for us. So look forward for that. It will likely be 10 to 2. I will give more details. I'm working on a flyer, working on vendors. So I've got a long way to go still, but this will be the first one. And then there will be a second similar one that's Clear the Shelter that will be in August as well. So more information on that. We did get an email this week. We happily accepted our invitation to Houston Mega Adoption. That will be August 17th and 18th. We will have set up on the 15th and then load animals in on the 16th. So if you've ever participated, this is a massive deal. The George R. Brown, we will absolutely need help and likely will close the shelter for all 4 days, redirecting people to go actually visit them in person. And so stay tuned for this, but we will absolutely need community help to make this a successful event as well. So last little bit, this is Kelly, by the way. She loves stuffing as many toys in her mouth as possible. This is going back to the prizes. So one of the things we're working on is marketing. We have this beautiful new logo and branding. And so some of the things, I should have brought my samples. I was really into the feel and the texture, but we have nice quality prizes that we use with volunteers. And I'm sorry. Oh yeah, Paige is utilizing it. So with the oohs and ahs. So we have the tote bags. We also have the Gulf style towels for like our dog walkers and slobbery dogs, that type of thing. Some very stylish hats. I should have worn mine today. And then I ordered some buttons and pins and stickers. Every time the kids come in, they want all the stickers. So I'm sure we'll run out of that pretty quickly. But in any case, when you walk in the shelter, there's now a stain board from Dravis as well. And so we're working on figuring out what these would cost in terms of, if you really want a tote bag, that's awesome. If you donate XYZ amount, then you can have one, absolutely. So I'm trying to figure out the pricing on that, but ideally we'll have more items to come and that will expand into the new shelter. I would love to have a little marketplace like a lot of the other shelters do as well. Advertising. And then lastly, you might have seen on social media, 3 people watched it while it was happening and I was only one of them. This was, I wrote his name wrong. I put Bao, but it's Boa. He's this little silly kitten. There's lots of action shots. The one I posted had him jumping in the air. But essentially, we finally got with our communications department with the city to figure out how to get this fancy camera to work. Multiple failed attempts, but if you want to go back and watch it, it was our first one. We figured out how to get the music playing so that way you don't have to just listen to static. So anyway, we troubleshooted some errors, and so we should be having more footage live now that we have a better understanding on how to do it. And many more kids.
And I asked Jenny yesterday. So
There's Boa Boa. I had a student named Boa, so it's, yeah, our little silly black cat. And with that, I will turn it back over to Cindy, but thank you so much.
All right, did everybody get I passed them out.
there.
So first of all, I want to thank everybody that worked on the committee with me, Jenna, John, Bender, Robin. There was a lot of time spent on updating on the 22nd at the special meeting. I committed to bring forward these at this meeting. we did meet 3 times hybridly, so sometimes people were virtual, sometimes they were in person, but there were a lot of emails sent back. About the final recommendation advisory board, on the 3rd. There have been some, grammatical things that were, caught, there's small things that were corrected. There was nothing in the context that was changed as far as that goes, from the time you got it. However, there was something that came up, in our staff meeting, on our supervisor meeting this week. So I went ahead, and there is something that is a difference on both the policies and the procedures and the, evaluation matrix. Essentially what we have done is on the, on page 1 of the policy, at the very bottom, the last line, it's not just if there's an evaluation done, it doesn't just have to be by staff. If we have a dog behaviorist come in, we can take their recommendation, or not come in, but if we have a dog behaviorist that works with one of our dogs, we will take their recommendation of expectation. And then we will move forward with it based on the information we get from them. And I'll explain why in just a minute. And then, so I updated it on the bottom of page 1 there, and then it is also on the procedure. It's the last paragraph on the 2nd page, where it says, if a dog with aggressive behavior has a foster that will commit to keeping it in their home and working with the dog behaviorist preferred by the shelter, including following all the steps that are recommended, that dog can be permitted to be evaluated by the dog behaviorist in lieu of the animal services management team. After evaluating and working with the dog, their evaluation and recommendation can be moved forward to the animal services manager and director. So, on the evaluation matrix, it was added under evaluation for the dog behaviorist, and the recommendation for the dog behaviorist under. So, the reason this came up is it doesn't make sense if we have a dog behaviorist work with the dogs. It doesn't make sense for us to do another evaluation on top of that, especially with their recommendation. We have a dog out in foster right now, that has been seeing, Martine. Been working with her for about a month. One of our volunteers has her. Panini. Panini's not doing well. She doesn't see the change she expected. And Jenny supports, Jenny, who works with her daily, understands. But that's why we're adding this in here, because it doesn't make sense for us to come back and examine her again and evaluate her again. She went out for a reason. She was in foster. She has had the absolute best chance she could have. But it's not going to be a successful outcome. JK9. Yes, JK9. So, the shelter has sponsored the training. So when she reached out, and she asked, so because she's, as Jenna, you and I talked about it, she's in the environment where she can be worked with. So even though we have that environment, sometimes we're not going to have the outcomes we want. But we have given her the absolute best opportunity. So anyway, that's why we have added that in here, because it doesn't make sense for our staff to have to do an evaluation on her. I have a very lengthy documented email from her, and from Jenny. So with that being said, As far as the rest of the policy, I think y'all have all had some time to look at it. Are there any questions as far as, let's start with the policy. And so one of the first steps we took when we were doing this review was we agreed, all of us agreed, that a policy and procedure need to be two separate documents. All of ours are not yet. We're starting with this one, and as we move forward with our different policies and procedures, we will be doing the same thing. So they will be two separate documents. So that's why you do have, it had been policy and procedure, and now it is two separate documents. Having reviewed it, are there any questions that y'all have on the policy part?
I just want to say congratulations to everybody who really worked on this. This is a monumental thing. I mean, it really is. I mean, it just to the fact of dividing the two from policy and procedure, but actually the in-depth knowledge that the subcommittee had to know and do is, I think so many kudos has to be given to the staff as well as to members of the board for taking the time out and to working so hard. This has been needed for a long time. So I thank you all for taking your time out of your life for the animals. I really do. Thank you.
Cindy, on the, oh, sorry.
All right, so anything procedure?
Just question, on the first page, under illness or injury after stray weight, third bullet, the term age-related problems, does that need a definition or examples? Or,
If you start putting in definitions and examples, you're gonna probably narrow it down too much. Don't wanna tunnel vision and narrow it down too much. So as y'all are looking through and seeing if you have any other questions, just so y'all are aware, we did have conversation regarding the fact that there is specific terminology regarding aggressive behavior in dogs. As far as aggressive behavior, we didn't need animals talking about cats. If cats are feral, they're going to be aggressive, and we're not going to try and do behavior management because, as far as I know, it doesn't work. But cats are cats. So anyway, just so y'all are aware, it is a little bit different than the terminology used in our ordinance because our ordinance says aggressive animals. Realistically, we're talking aggressive dogs, so that's what we're utilizing here with them. Even though it's separate right now, it's because I hadn't updated the screenshot of it. So this is actually the last of the appendix. The matrix is actually the last page of the appendix within the procedure. Right now it's separate, but that's because of the way I had to print it today. That's the last page of the procedure. And essentially what that does is that's just a visual of everything within the policy and procedure of who does what and why.
I didn't participate in the committee because it would have caused a quorum, so I do commend the committee for the results of this. I do think it's a very good outcome to the product and very usable. As we develop the assessment teams, there's a good checklist. We've got a good process. No one wants to make this decision. You know, you can hear Cindy's voice when she's talking about Panini, you know, where we all wanted the best for her. But sometimes it's the most humane thing to do for them. And it was very apparent hearing Martine's email yesterday about her concerns with Panini, and I love Panini, but I couldn't in good faith adopt her out with the issues that she's having. Yeah, thank you to the community. I think it's a very good product.
Physical symptoms, as far as her triggers, are listed here.
I think bottom line is, and it was said, what is best for her?
It is.
What is best for her is not,
She's so scared.
yeah. And,
She has been since the day she came in.
yeah.
She settled sometimes,
Mhm.
but then something will trigger her and she's.
Mhm.
How old has she been in the shelter? I
Well,
can't remember. Did
Sorry,
you-
it was
Right before you, it was right as really, she. Yes.
She was there
Yeah,
before
you
I
did
took
name
the
her.
shelter over.
Yeah, you did name
So
her.
it was last summer sometime.
Yeah, so it was probably right here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she's the cutest, so
She can be super sweet, but she does give warnings. That's, thank God, she gives warnings. Because she does have a lot of triggers. So.
well, as Laura Haug used to say, and still says, PTSD is alive and well. And we forget
I
that.
have no idea what their background is. We
Exactly.
have no idea what any of their backgrounds are. And
Yes.
That's the concerning.
And it's alive and well.
Yeah.
And we're doing possibly the dog a disservice by pretending, like the behavioralist said, that he's human or she's human. You know, what's best for the dog may not be best for us. You know what I mean? So congratulations, guys. I know it was a big decision.
Hey Cindy, on the flow chart, you know where you have in instances, what's underneath instances where an animal under a care of a vet? Should we maybe do another line if it's under care of a behaviorist, since we are allowing them to make the decision by
No, because it's
themselves?
still gonna have to come back to.
Well, but this says or.
On
Yeah.
so that. And I realized that as I was looking at it,
Yeah,
the asterisk is tied to vet. On the right side, those were bullets, and the way Excel did it was the asterisk instead of a bullet, so I'll change that symbol, because the asterisk doesn't tie in with under behavioral euthanasia.
okay.
The asterisk just ties in under medical euthanasia.
Yeah, we can put that table up.
But on the, yeah, I'll update
And
that.
that medical, the instance, so we actually had a cat that was in surgery that went in for a spay, was feral. We couldn't even check to see if she was spayed. They got her in surgery and she was completely jaundiced. And the vet called and was just like, we just need to.
Well,
euthanize
yeah,
this."
she called
Like,
doing
she was
surgery.
she was literally in the surgical suite and she called me as I was at lunch because Cindy was out and she was like, I really think we should euthanize this cat. It's just not, she doesn't have a life, you know, she's so sick. And we had no idea because we couldn't even assess her. So that's what this bullet is referring to. So in that case, the vet would contact either Cindy or myself and we would approve it. But those are gonna be few.
I think in the policy, it actually is in care of a vet, but it's literally, it's realistically, it's during a surgical procedure. When they're doing, yeah, so. And then on here, we did add the evaluation, must be done by or the staff members or an animal behaviorist, and then the recommendation come from already the staff, evaluation staff or the dog behaviors.
Cindy, I didn't have a chance to take a look at this language regarding the dog behavioralist before this meeting, and I'm not entirely sure that I understand the language by reading it quickly here. I'd like an opportunity to think about this.
Okay, I mean, it's what we move forward with from this path, so.
Fine.
So, I mean, if there's some wording that you want me to work on, I can do that.
Well, I'd like to be able to read it other than hear and think about it and see if I have questions. I think there was an opportunity to present it to us prior to this meeting, and that would have been a good thing.
Literally just came
I
yesterday.
literally changed it at 9 o'clock
Yesterday afternoon.
after our meeting yesterday.
That's before this meeting.
I want it.
But yeah, feedback on the language.
I don't want to lose an opportunity to say something after I get a chance to think about it.
Okay. You know, you have, you have something on your.
Just because I know we wanted to move forward. Can we vote on it without that paragraph? Then, and if you wanted to start implementing it, or do you want to wait another meeting? What?
Well, actually,
Look, I'm not trying to.
You don't have to vote. That's no. You don't have to.
since this is an advisory board, there's no board. Oh, okay, so we want to involve the board in these discussions, and we'll talk about subcommittees here and what the roles are in the next agenda item. But yeah, we want your buy-in on it, but there's no formal approval of it. So if we need to tweak language, I don't have.
I was, okay with it before the new language, and I may still be. And I just want an opportunity.
I agree, and like.
And it's just like a time review. I appreciate it. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
completely.
That situation came up yesterday and we discussed and was like, I felt very strongly about that we needed to include some language. So if we need to change the language, I'm perfectly open to that.
Okay, so then we're moving on to discussion on appointment of members to the Animal Advisory Board committees.
This is an action item. So what I wanted to, y'all, I took over the shelter in August and I have been so confused about what committees we have. Entire time, so I wanted to have an item for us. Yes, the committees, what our roles are in the committees. So this is from the Animal Advisory Board charge from City Council, so and state law. So as you're aware, we are required by state law to have an Animal Advisory Board. We're required to meet at least 3 times a year. We meet a year, so we're meeting every. The charge of the board is to review and recommend procedures for the care and maintenance of animal shelter facilities and impounded animals to ensure law, and periodically review the ordinances and make recommendations for revisions. So we have 11 members on our board. We all have very diverse backgrounds and roles. We have to have a vet, we have to have a volunteer, we have a representative from rescue, we have shelter employees, we have. So very diverse backgrounds, and I will tell y'all, just watching what Cindy went through to try to get this policy that we just discussed wrapped up in such a short time frame, like it's like herding cats to try to get all of our different schedules. We can't have more than 5 members on each committee because constitute a quorum of the board. So with that, I have gone back and looked through notes, and these are some of the best and these are some of the definitions, going back and looking at some of the old agenda. Focusing on appropriate use of available. That is like right in there with fundraising. And operations is discussing topics concerning shelter, but not limited to trap, neuter, and release. Poultry regulations and big description. And I'm just reading from what was in the notes before, so, field service levels was one. Best service levels such as trapping, or responses, as well as regulations pertaining to dog bites and the maximum number of ordinance modifications, focus on necessary ordinance resulting from board recommendation. Policies and procedure. And then finally fundraising. Legacy Foundation. So. Challenges. So some of the challenges with separating the day-to-day management of with the professional staff running the shelter. I want to make into, you know, like one of those two words, interfering with the day-to-day operations. Understanding that the services that that this shelter provides are greatly impacted. And a suggestion, we want to avoid to implementation. Scheduling was a huge, is it going in and out? Okay, switch it. Scheduling is a huge challenge. And we do greatly value your input, but you recognize that y'all have your own lives and you don't want to be coming to Public Works on a weekly basis for meetings. And it's really hard to get 4 to 5 board members together in a short time frame to review proposed items before we have to submit agenda items before the board meetings. So once we have our committees established, whatever committees we decide to appoint, it's really important that our members make every effort to participate in meetings so that we're not, we can avoid duplication of efforts. You have a meeting when you have 2 of the 4 and you talk about things, and then you have the other 2 of the 4 show up to the other meeting, and you end up duplicating a lot of efforts. And then I think I already said this one, we want to overcomplicate, we don't want to overcomplicate our processes. So with that background and where we're at today, what we're looking at, I would recommend 3 committees for this board. One would be policies, to review and update the operating policies. The procedures would be then developed under that policy by staff on how we're going to implement that policy. And so the board is saying at the policy level, the procedures would be driven by staff. And then we could share those with you. But the procedures tend to be the more detailed piece of it. And so then ordinances, modifications y'all, we just recently adopted the ordinance on Tuesday. So I don't foresee an immediate need for this committee, but it would be good to have it on hand in case something comes up, like a change in state law where we need to revise the ordinance. And then finally, the fundraising committee for the new shelter. And that would be working in conjunction with the Legacy Foundation. To help avoid some of the challenges that we previously that we have faced in getting the committees together, I would recommend that we have 3 board members, non-staff board members, and that would allow Cindy or myself or both of us to participate in the discussions without running into a quorum issue. And so that way, if like Cindy's not here, I could run a committee meeting, or it just, you just, and I will speak from experience, you never know what's going to happen. I was out for 6 weeks, unexpectedly. So I wouldn't want to have hold up anything, you know, because the staff wasn't available. So that was my recommendation. I'd like to open it up for discussion, and I do have an action item on here for us to appoint committees or volunteer for committees.
So the task of deciding what is done with donations that are not for the new shelter would still fall under this fundraising committee?
Actually, I feel like it falls under the management of the shelter. Because we haven't created a separate fund for it, and I do report to y'all on it. We're developing plans for how we'd like to utilize those funds. And we're happy to share those with y'all and get your input, but I don't know that it necessarily. I feel like it would be inhibiting to the process to have to run any expenditure by the committee before we want to spend funds for an enrichment or a behaviorist or, yeah, like. I feel like between Jillian and Cindy and myself, we've got a really good handle on what those funds can be used for. We have our own policy, interdepartmental policy on how those funds can be used. So I was actually surprised to see that that was a committee, because I was like, what does this committee do, you know? So that was just my take on it.
I agree with that. I think in the past, we were sometimes included as a courtesy. And I'm confident with what you just said. And I think the other place that we also talked about donations long ago, we would do like Christmas events where we would collect toys, or we do towel drives, and all those things those small things that we did over the years were also included in donations. So cat food for the TNR group that we were observing and things like that. But those can certainly be part of fundraising discussion, and they should be handled at the staff level, I think.
Yeah, and I think those have become part of our day-to-day operations. I had no idea that was even a function of that committee. So it just kind of shows you, like, you start something at the committee level and it just becomes ingrained and it becomes part of the day-to-day. Any other feedback on committees? Who wants to volunteer? I think we kind of already have the fundraising committee. But go ahead.
I would like to be present on the policies committee.
Definitely, yes.
Who is on the fundraising committee?
I think I have Jenna and Barbara, and then I want to say, who did you tell me wanted to be on it? Robin or Ellen? I don't remember.
Well, I'm just gonna just ask who would like to. Fundraising committee.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who would like to be on the fundraising committee?
I would like to continue fundraising.
Well,
And I think that one is one where we don't, yeah. I don't know that we necessarily need as much staff involvement in that. We can serve as a liaison, but we don't necessarily as staff need to be on the committee. So we could have more. Yeah.
Yeah, that would not be far.
Yeah. Okay, so I have Barbara, Marion, Jenna, and who else? Ellen? Ellen and Jenna, okay. All right, so policy, I've got Dr. Bender. Anyone else?
Which
Policy?
Okay, you can put me down for that one.
Okay.
I'm on here for it, and since we won't need one for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll be going through, and that one probably will be the most active other than fundraising, just because we'll be reviewing our other policies.
Yeah, policies will be enacted.
Most active. Yeah, well, we have a lot of policy to go through. We have to rewrite our.
Does it require in person? Like a lot?
It's better, If we could
Okay.
meet in person, or we could do in person or virtual, one or the other.
Team with this, we
Yeah,
did
we
team,
did
we
both.
did phone.
Cause I can attend meetings, but I can't commit to coming here like every week.
Yeah.
I can't commit to every week anyway.
Future hopefully won't be, as big
Okay.
a turnaround, but I feel like with the recent discussions on the ordinance, like there was a lot of pressure on that euthanasia policy for us to get that turned around and back to you.
Okay,
The rest of them, I feel like, can be stretched out over. a
okay,
long-
I'll stay on it.
Okay.
Y'all just might see me more on Teams.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Teams is what we.
Okay, if I can do that.
I got job to work too. That was.
Oh, I use Teams every day. So
Yeah.
I just need y'all on one screen and keep working on the next.
Yes.
Okay, and then, I don't know that we'll have a great need for ordinance committee anytime soon, but we could go ahead and
Like I said.
volunteer. Robin, okay.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can, I mean, when it comes up, I'd like to be on it. Just,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I would volunteer for that too.
Okay.
Need another person.
Okay. I think we're good on that. So I've got it written down, so I won't forget. All right, so then our last item is the director's report, and the slide did not change, but you all received the draft. This is the status of our animal services donations fund. And of course, the kittens are gonna start crying right at the end. We started this year with $173,989. We have collected to date donations of $17,383. We've earned interest income of $5,397. Yay, like interest income. And we've received $5,000 in grant revenue. We'll get another $5,000 check probably here in the next few weeks, now that that ordinance has been adopted for the community cat program. And then so far, and I actually just moved a bunch of this money around in our budget categories, trying to clean up some overages and where I thought we needed money versus some of this, we just kind of placed it in an account as a placeholder. So the main expenditures to date have been the rentals of venues for adoption events, purchasing the marketing. We purchased the t-shirts. We ordered t-shirts that we will have available at the front desk for donations. Kayla wore one, I think, and Kayla and Yenny had them on at event. They've just got the big logo right there on the front. And then we've purchased things like the tablecloth and the backdrop and things like that. So we're working on kind of creating our image and our branding. Thank you. I was like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? And then what is the contracted services? I can't remember. I think that may be the behaviorist. I don't remember. Yeah. Sorry, there's so much lumped into that one account that I honestly can't remember the exact detail of it. We're going through our budget right now, so asking for what we need for next year, and it's all jumbled up in my head right now. So, but community cat spays and neuters would come out of this fund with the grant funding. The kitten kits, we're buying those with the grant funding. Heartworm treatments coming out of the pharmaceutical. So those type of things that aren't what we provide in our normal service levels. That's basically what this fund is covering. Any questions?
I have a question. I would ask that staff please come up with your like top 5, 6, 7 things that you would like either donations, or the other thing is we've encountered some pretty specific grants for things, and there was discussion at our grant meeting about whether we know what the priority is and we know where we have to spend the majority of our time. But if we encounter a group or an organization, individual, or a grant that is for something specific that the animal shelter needs, that it's high on your list of priorities, then we would like to be able to say, hey, we saw this is what it would entail if we move forward in any direction with that, whether it be grant or just donation. Do you want us to pursue it? And so I was asked the question, well, what are the things? And I know what I'd say off the top of my head, but I don't know that they represent your list. So if we could develop that kind of list, I think that would be helpful as we move forward with grants and donations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Definitely. I know one of the things we wanted to do with particularly the one donation we got last year was to do some split fencing in the big yard. So that we could have more than one dog out there and have the separation between the dogs. And I think we just need to move forward with it. And I will tell you that we got bids on the modular building, and it came in twice what our budget was again. So we have decided not to move forward with that building, and we will apply the large donation from Mr. Hunter toward the new shelter. Was not able to get a report from the Legacy Foundation. Kimberly is off today. I think she may have emailed me, but I didn't have a chance to read it. So where we're at as far as like the Legacy Foundation donation. So I will make sure I include that in the next meeting.
Could we consider adding dirt before the fence in the backyard so that we don't have a lake every time it rains?
But they love the mud, so.
Yeah.
Diamond, you're gone, so.
That's true, yeah. Maybe we can look at regrading it. So I know we have the equipment.
A lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no guarantee it's gonna stay level either.
Boring, and I'm like, we're having some of those.
All right, so right now, we have 105,000 budgeted and we've spent 31,000 roughly. And so we're looking at an ending balance as of where we stand today of 170,000. But we still have roughly 75,000 budgeted that we could spend. Not saying that we will spend it between now and the end of the year. So budgeted balance is significantly less, but I wanted to give us flexibility when I put the money in the budget for this year to be able to utilize the funds if the need came up. And so we'll put together a plan for what we'd like to do with the donations in fiscal year 25. And I think we'll have a much better idea going forward, because I came into this like after the budget was already filed and trying to get it all straightened out.
Okay, Jennifer, this is based on the first 7 months of the fiscal year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't anticipate anything weird over the next 5 months that might skew this any way, shape, or form?
The only thing I could think is that if we move forward with the fencing and get that done, and I think that was probably $10,000 is our estimate on that. So that was the specific donation.
Yeah, the swim team.
The swim team, yes, yeah. And some of this is, like we have funds set aside for the kitten kits and the TNR program, and those will be coming out of this fund. Especially once we get that second grant payment.
I think one of the other things that has been spent is because of what hit in fiscal year was the microchipping. So the microchipping and the heartworm treatment meds were spent in this fiscal year, but they were a grant that we got last year. So that's.
Spending that grant. We're spending that now, yeah. For the microchip.
That was, we bought the microchips this year. The grant money I think came in last year, but it was, the grant was specifically for heartworm treatment and microchipping. So I think the expenses hit this year, whereas the grant was received last year.
Right. With that, our next meeting is July 12th, right in the heat of summer, and then September 13th. We'll wrap up our last meeting for the fiscal year, so mark your calendars. And that is all I have for today. I motion that we adjourn.
Yes, so. Is there a second?
A second.
Then we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.